Welcome to the We Are Wake Tech podcast with your host, Wake Tech President, Dr. Scott Ralls.
Hi, I'm Scott Ralls, and welcome to a new episode of We Are Wake Tech. Thank you for joining our podcast, a special podcast today to talk about scholarships and their important role at Wake Tech, and to talk about scholarships and giving and receiving scholarships. Two very, very important people to Wake Tech. Stephanie Lake, our Chief Operating Officer for the Wake Tech Foundation, and Candis Parker, who is a graduate of Wake Tech, we'll talk about that, but also the incoming chair of the Wake Tech Foundation. So thanks for joining today on the We Are Wake Tech podcast.
Thanks for having us. Thank you, yes.
Let's start off, we always like to start off a little bit of finding out about our guest, and these are two unique people for Wake Tech in different ways, but each unique in their own way. Stephanie, I often say you have been a part of Wake Tech for many years. As you must have started when you were a kid here, but you've been around Wake Tech for a long time. You have been here during the hyper growth of Wake Tech, and you've been a key part of that by a key fundraiser and part of the Wake Tech Foundation, now our Chief Operating Officer. Tell us about your journey to Wake Tech and what that's meant to you in this last almost 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in April it'll be 19 years.
19 years.
Yeah. For a job I thought I'd stay out for 5 years. So my background is in arts and arts management, and part of that is fundraising. The arts always need fundraisers, and so that was the start. And then when I was working in Johnston County, I had the pleasure of working alongside the folks at Johnston Community College Foundation. So when this position came open, my colleague that was over there was like, you should apply for that position. I think that'd be really good for you. And the rest is history. So that's how I started out as Director of Development, and then kind of moved up through the ranks, and then became Chief Operating Officer for the foundation about 3, maybe 4 years ago.
That's good for you and good for us. We've had a couple of record years here lately, and
Yeah.
you've been here since to watch both the growth of Wake Tech and the growth of the foundation.
For sure. It's been a lot of fun.
And also with us, Candis Parker, who sometimes I will say is literally the poster child for Wake Tech, because even every once in a while you'll still see a commercial on TV where you're in the commercial, but going back a few years ago, but not that long ago, when you were a student at Wake Tech and then have from Wake Tech been the example of just a great career in construction. I think last month was Women in Construction Month, and so it's good to have you here this month, but you're here too because you've been a student, a scholarship recipient, and now a leader in our fundraising efforts. So tell us, I told your story, but tell us a little bit more of your story.
Expand a little bit. Yeah, so my journey at Wake Tech started over a decade ago. And I came in not really a part of the community, just, going to take some classes. And
How'd you get to Wake County?
What?
How'd you get to Wake County?
My dad was military, so we moved here my junior year in high school. I went to NC State, and we just kind of stayed around here. Fast forward a couple of years after NC State, we new young family and trying to figure out what you wanted to do in life and next career steps. And so I started taking some classes at Wake Tech and took a few more and joined the architecture and construction programs. And it was honestly, being a military child, it was really the first time that I've started to feel community. I was so supported by the staff, by the, my peers. It was just a really great feeling that I wasn't really used to. I got a fantastic scholarship, and that scholarship for me meant a lot. So a year before I graduated, I got the Scott Scholarship, and that really connected me to the university in a way that I didn't even know it was possible, from the one-on-one mentoring to opportunities to be out in the market and tell my story and interact with, different companies in the market. It just kind of opened my eyes, and quite frankly, it changed the whole entire trajectory of my career and for my family. I honestly can say that without the scholarship and without the giving of the community that supported me, I wouldn't be sitting here today with the career that I have, with the network of community that I have without Wake Tech. And that just directly correlates to the people that decided to give. Rachel Selisker, her starting that scholarship,
Scott Scholarship.
The Scott Scholarship, that's right. Her starting that scholarship had an immense ripple effect on my life and my family's life.
So big shout outs to Rachel Salzberg.
Big shout outs to
and
Rachel.
also to my predecessor, Steve Scott, who the Scott Scholarship's named
That's
for.
right.
So you
Yeah.
were the first. Were the first
Very
Scott
first.
Scholar?
I
Is that
was
right?
the first, yeah. And, I know we talk about the Scott Scholarship, but there's so many others,
Yeah.
right? Like all the other giving. Like I'm just one example of that. But there's tons of other ripples and tons of other students that have gone on to really amazing careers thanks to the giving of the community.
Absolutely. And so post Wake Tech, you were, you took a non-traditional in the sense that I think that's why you're such a great spokesperson for Wake Tech, but you also represent someone when we see you in construction on the video that's on TV now, we see you, looking over floor plans
That's
or
right.
something. And so I think that's a great thing, too, is to see someone who you wouldn't expect in roles that have been traditionally male roles. And now you've had this career. Tell us a little bit about that career trajectory in construction management that started somewhat here at Wake Tech.
It did, yeah. So kind of what I thought was a benefit to my scholarship, but was actually just inherently how Wake Tech operates, was they connected me with a really great construction company here, and I got an internship, and post-internship, they decided to hire me, and I stayed with that company for almost 11, 12 years. Really great company, and really great kind of foundation to me being in construction. You typically don't see, at that time anyway, a lot of women and minority women. You don't see that in the construction world. And so one of the things that's been nice is my time to come back, being on the construction advisory committee, being able to show other women and other minorities, what a career in construction can be. And it's also given me an opportunity to give back. The same way the community supported me, I get to also support the community in giving back with scholarships and with time.
Yeah.
So.
We'll come back to that in a second.
Okay.
But you mentioned the Scott Scholarship, which is a leading scholarship here at Wake Tech, but it's not, thanks to the generous giving of many people, that's not the only scholarship opportunity. Stephanie, can you tell us a little bit more about the breadth of scholarship opportunity here?
Sure. So scholarships get divided up into curriculum, which is what most folks think. So degree-seeking students, those are a large bread and butter of the population that we educate. So we give out a little over $500,000 a year through 155 named scholarships that are targeting students that are enrolled in degree-seeking programs. So it could be finishing degrees like construction, or it could be transfer, but it's focused in that pot of funds. So that is our major application that's open right now. So students can apply right now from March 1 to April 30th. It's an online application. It's one application, one essay prompt to be considered for, over $500,000 worth of scholarships.
That bears repeating
It
for
does.
all the students who are
It
listening.
does, because that is not the norm.
It's an important time. It's
It
an important
is.
process.
It
But
is.
But you all have made it so
Yes,
easy
I
and
remember
workable.
when it was paper, and it was really who was
Yeah.
the loudest dean in the room who would argue and vie for their student. But now it is, it's typically a blind process, and there are 3 reviewers that review each of those essay applications, and students get scored on merit, they get scored on financial need, and they get scored on their essay. And depending upon what that criteria that was established by the donor, we're looking at all 3 of those scores, or maybe only 2. If it's a merit, then we're just going to look at merit and essay. If it's financial need, then we're going to look at that FAFSA information, or look at that EFC from family contribution and essay piece of it, to make some determinations and then sort those into what scholarships that they're eligible for. So that's on the curriculum side. In addition to that is workforce continuing education. So non-degree, these are our certificates, these are our boot camps, those are the things that don't end up with a associate's degree, but they do end up typically with some sort of certification or licensure that means something in the working community. And we have a lot of funds, a lot of really great donors who have seen the need for short course training and sponsoring students and providing scholarships for areas there. And that is handled actually directly through Workforce Continuing Education. We provide the funding, and then we also have, there's state and federal funding that is supporting that, but that's handled directly through Joy Curry and Anthony Kaysen in Workforce Continuing Education. So we're kind of behind the scenes on that. We're not as hands-on on those pieces. And that's probably another couple $100,000 in private funding being awarded in small amounts. So everything from $65 to $265 to maybe $1,000, depending upon what that program trajectory is. So we've kind of got two things going on. Both of them are online applications that we try to make them as easy as possible, so that the student's not sitting there pouring through each scholarship criteria trying to figure out what they're eligible for. Like, let us do that. We'll handle that piece of it. We've got a really smart, wonderful database and scholarship manager, Maya Rossman. Shout out to her. She does all of the work.
Yeah, great work.
All of the work on that side,
Maya's terrific.
and manages the 100 or so faculty and staff who actually volunteer their time to be reviewers. And they handle all of that online as well. But she handles that whole process, soup to nuts. And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention her, because she really is a student advocate. She wants to see as much money go to students as possible. So.
Well, shout out to Maya, and then also all the faculty and staff, because the majority of our faculty and staff are donors to the foundation.
They are.
But then they give their time
They do.
in this way to review
They do.
and give more and more opportunity than they do just in the classroom and advising and other things.
Yep, employees give over $100,000 a year through the employee campaign, and it goes to a lot of different places, but they actually have, we had so many that were saying just give it to a scholarship that we created, the Wake Tech Employees Student Scholarship. And so we usually give out between 5 and 10, it depends on the market, but between $5,000 and $10,000 scholarships through them directly.
I want to clarify too for the listeners, particularly students who are interested in scholarships. So if it's a workforce continuing education non-degree short-term, is that throughout the year? Is that
It is throughout the year.
So just
that
if you're
application is open.
But for our degree-seeking students, that scholarship is primarily for next academic year.
Absolutely.
And now's the time.
Now's
March
the time.
is the key
now.
month.
Yep, through April 30th.
April 30th. So you got
Do
2
not
months.
delay.
March
And the
April.
ILC will review your essay. If you are worried about it, the ILC actually will let you sign up, and they will take a look at your essay and give you feedback on it.
So that sounds like and I think we say this with the foundation, no excuses, right?
No excuses.
There are no excuses. There's no reason that financial issues of any kind should get in your way. And so.
And I should mention that outside of those two main pots, there is also book scholarships, and there are other scholarships that we offer to CCP students if they need help with their uniforms or some of those other kind of non-tuition pieces, because their tuition is waived, but non-tuition assistance that they need, and that is handled and facilitated through our CCP folks and through the Care Center. So you can apply, you can get a book scholarship if you need some assistance with books or supplies, and
So always
Go on
ask,
your way.
always apply.
always, don't be afraid to ask. It never hurts to ask. I tell people that all the time. What's the worst they can say? No? Okay, move on.
And we're nice if we have to.
And we're
Yeah.
nice. We do really try hard. We try hard to
So Candis,
make it happen.
going back, so you're a bit younger than me, so it's easier for you to remember those college days. They weren't that long ago.
Not that long ago. Yeah.
So go back to that and maybe think about how did the scholarship, that Scott scholarship, you touched on it a little bit, that difference it make. What did it make a difference for you as a student?
I think for me as a student, I at the time didn't know how ingrained Wake Tech was in the business community, right? So the monetary part was key, right? We were young family, one income, so it was really important for us,
Took
to
some
help
pressures off.
offset, the cost, because there are a good amount of costs associated with it. But I guess as importantly, it was kind of the access to the community, access to information, the time that it allowed the leadership and the faculty to be able to pour into me, and I watched pour into a lot of other students. And I think that for me was the piece that I took away, like the giving. There's so much giving here in Wake Tech. They're not taking in scholarships to, kind of hoard away like a dragon. It really is right from their hands directly to the students. And for that left such an impression of, that's what I want to do. I want to give, right? And so, as a student, when you're thinking about books and getting through your next class, but also getting that added value of thinking about community and thinking about business and next steps. It just broadened how I viewed my career and my options here in Wake County. So.
You brought out something important that I would not have thought of as much, but it's really important, is that while it was financially helpful and important, as much as anything, the engagement that you gained from that sounds like it was just, if maybe not even more important.
Just as important, yeah. And honestly, I just think it goes back to giving of finances, giving of time, giving the faculty and staff. And Stephanie just talked about the faculty and staff giving, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole scholarship. That's, I don't know how common it is, but that's amazing, right? So just the culture of Wake Tech is giving and community, and that's in part to all the great businesses and people that decide to pour into Wake Tech.
When I watched you a couple of years ago interact with Rachel at one of our Ignite events, the donor, and so I guess there were connections that you formed through that will stay with you forever too.
Oh gosh, yeah, Rachel and I go to coffee, we go to lunch. She's my therapist, and she'll tell me about how I need to pivot, career-wise. I've got pictures of her grands, right? So it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think, and I know we'll talk about it in the future, but the scholarships that people decide to set up and things like that, the ability to be able to not just give money but give time and pour into Wake Tech.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's invaluable.
Yeah. I've said Stephanie something. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, Rachel herself was a graduate. So, she was a graduate in accounting and credits Wake Tech for setting her off on her career, very, very long career in accounting, and very successful. In accounting and in consulting. She was like, it's all started here. And
Kind of
then,
circle of life.
and then it's a whole circle. And then we did the same thing to Candis, because as soon as she, that first employer, right after she left Wake Tech, she then championed them establishing a scholarship that they've now endowed and they've continued to support, and it's continued to be awarded. And that scholarship's really interesting and unique because it's really rewarding the students who are active with our OVAL, with the volunteerism and leadership office at the college. And so that is
the ripple effect that you were talking about, really.
Like for that one, it's not really about the financial need piece. It's really about all of the work that student has done, and they're being rewarded for it to help pay that next semester or the next year for them. And they've continued to fund it even, after she left and moved on in her career, because it developed a great relationship for us. So,
one thing I've seen is that, whether you were a student here or not, like Rachel or Candis, but even those who are they learn about Wake Tech and they become involved as part of our community, a lot of times the donors, while the money is so important, it's the other ways they are engaged in Wake Tech that even over time become at least as important and more important than the money, even though the money is crucial for many students to move forward.
for sure. No, I tell people all the time, I'm like, our donors are really delightful, lovely, giving, charitable, hard working. Most of them have absolutely worked their way up to get to where that they are. And then their ability to choose to give back, whether they're an alum or they're not. I mean, most of them aren't. Most of our donors came by way of other methods, either corporate hiring or workforce continuing education or some type of customized training, things like that. And then it just develops into this relationship. I do think the one thing that we do really well, that you do really well, is relationship building, and that's really what it's about.
Well, I think our students do too. I mean, I think they appreciate who the Wake Tech students are, the hard-working, get it done kind of spirit that exists among Wake Tech
100%.
students.
Wake Tech students are survivors and thrivers, and just all, their walks of life are so different. And I think, going back to an earlier point, my old employer decided to continue their partnership with Wake Tech because Wake Tech puts out such good students and good people. Why would you not want to continue to support? So their support was not limited to my advocacy, but because Wake Tech's a really great,
So if there are folks listening who want to support the next Candis, someone at Wake Tech through scholarship, you described how easy the application process What about on the other side, the
Giving is
process?
very easy.
Tell us about
Why
that.
would we make that hard? I mean, it's as easy as an email or a phone call to Matt Smith, our vice president, or to myself. We're pretty easy to find on our website, but it's as easy as that. Honestly, anyone in our office can field phone calls. Everybody in the office knows how to do, what to say, all of the things, but most of the time they hand them off to Matt or myself, but it's as easy as that. So it is, endowed scholarships are a minimum of $25,000, and they kick off about $1,000 a year. We like to kind of grow those and make them bigger because as things get more expensive, we are trying to grow those scholarship amounts so that it helps the student more. $1,000 15 years ago went a lot longer, a lot farther than it does now. But then it goes up from there. So the Scott Scholars program awards usually about $3,500 each year, and it is generating. I mean, it's at $600,000 or $700,000 at this point. And so that allows us to then broaden it. So when Candis was there was only one student. Now we have two. We're looking at potentially doing three next year because we've got the depth and it's grown enough. And so we've got scholarships that range. We don't do anything lower than 1,000, but they go up to, right now, I think 4,000 is probably our largest one. And they can, they can go from there. Workforce continuing education really doesn't have a minimum, but typically we still try to get them in at least $1,000. That's on the endowed side. We also do annual ones where we'll just send an invoice and we just remind you to send your funds every year. So it's not endowed, it's not invested. It's just an annual continuing $1,000 contribution a year or $2,000 contribution a year, then funds that scholarship for that next year. So,
you said $1,000 may not go a long way, but at Wake Tech, it stretches a long way.
It stretches. It
because
absolutely
our
does.
maximum tuition and fees is right at $2,500.
Absolutely.
So you're covering a
I
good
am
bit of the
not
way.
going to say no to a $1,000
No way.
scholarship.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
You can
I might
stretch it up.
try because I'm a fundraiser.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to move you up a little bit, each year.
You can stretch that. It goes a long way.
But it
at Wake
does,
Tech.
yeah. We typically say that with books, $3,000, so you're paying for a third.
Yeah.
And the students are really, so just for folks who don't know, in the curriculum side, at least, the process is they get awarded the scholarship, but then we do share thank you notes with those donors. And it is amazing how many students, even, when you think $1,000 and you're thinking it's $500 for the fall and $500 for the spring, they act like you gave them $1 million. They are truly incredibly appreciative and just delightful to work with. A lot of our Rotary and civic organizations like to meet their students, so I get the opportunity to go out, usually in March and April of every year, to bring them to Rotary meetings so that they can meet them in person and hear from them. Because those organizations are fundraising to make those dollars to then grant them to us, and so it's really personal for them. And it is just it is rejuvenating and delightful and inspiring every spring for me to have the opportunity to meet those students in person and have them engage with their donors, because it's so frequently they talk about the things that Candis talked about, that while the financial piece was definitely important, it meant they didn't have to work maybe as many hours, that they could spend more time engaging with the SGA and other activities that we offer on campus, thanks to the scholarship, so they don't have to work so much, that it really is about, it was really uplifting for them that someone wanted to invest in them, that there are people who care about total strangers and want to invest in their education and see them do better. And so they're happy to go to these events and these dinners and say thank you and introduce themselves, because they're just thrilled that people wanted to invest in them.
I love how appreciative Wake Tech students, community college students are, that there is this sense of, sometimes when people are thinking about college students or young people or whatever, that the notion of entitlement. There's not a whole lot of entitlement at Wake Tech. You see a great, there's just so much appreciation for, just like you expressed, Candis, your appreciation for your time at Wake Tech, and now you're giving back your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's, I think sometimes, as you work for years, you sometimes forget, but when you're a student and everything feels expensive and everything feels heavy, right? So those moments of scholarship, are just, even if
Yeah.
it's just $1,000.
Lightens the load.
It
doesn't it?
lightens the load.
Yeah.
And that's so important when, for the most part, you think of a Wake Tech student, they're working full time.
Yeah.
They are taking care of a family,
family.
taking care of a
Yeah.
parent,
Our average age is what, 28?
Yep.
So most of them,
Yeah.
retired
Yeah.
military,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
the breadth of what a Wake Tech student is and how these scholarships impact each one of them. It's different, but it's always just like revered, right? Because you like, oh, somebody thought enough about me to read my essay
yeah.
and to decide that they wanted to invest in me.
Yeah.
That's a real boost
Yep.
for a student that may feel a little down, or stressed out.
So
or-
many, particularly the adult students, when they're writing afterwards, they're like, I've never won anything. Because you don't know, their high school experience may not have been really great, and that's why they didn't go to school immediately after they got out of high school. And so frequently they're like, I've never won anything. No one's ever called me a scholar, and now I'm a scholar. I have a scholarship. I have for some, when it's merit-based, I have a 4.0 and I've earned it and someone recognized it. That's a confidence boost, and that is changing their
So
perspective of themselves. And that is something that never before I started working in scholarships, it just didn't occur to me that would be a life-changing moment for them. And it is really, that's what gets me up every day.
Well, it's the good. Yeah, I was going to say. I mean,
That is what makes me
it's the good.
stay for 20 years.
It's the good stuff for us.
Yeah.
I just always felt like if you ever want to be inspired, be here. You can find inspiration here more so than any other place I know.
A lot of the employees that volunteer, they volunteer every single year to read the essays because they say that it's really inspiring to them.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder for them of why they've chosen to work at Wake Tech and why they've chosen to work with students.
All right, and wrapping up, this is going to be a challenge for both of you because we've about said it all. But in your best as incoming chair of the foundation board, as the chief operating officer for the Wake Tech Foundation, give us your best elevator. Why Wake Tech? Why give to the Wake Tech Foundation?
You want me to go first? Okay.
You're the COO.
Oh, okay. My elevator pitch, my answer to that is, so there is no other nonprofit, and I love a lot of nonprofits, and I've worked for other nonprofits here in the county, but there's no other organization, no other educational institution or nonprofit that works as collaboratively across the county with other charitable organizations, with other educational institutions, other governments, other civic organizations, leadership, et cetera, and serves as many students and bends over backwards to serve those students as Wake Tech. We just touch more folks than I think anybody else in the county.
I think Stephanie said it perfectly. And as a receiver of the scholarship and then a giver of scholarships, I will say that, this is our community. And Wake Tech is central to that. And if we care about our community, care about the people of our community, really want to make a true impact, then you would want to support Wake Tech because that is a direct line to the people that deserve it, that want it, and to Stephanie's earlier point, to really bolster the confidence of a student that could one day be your employer.
Well, on behalf of the Wake Tech community, let me say thank you to Stephanie Lake and your career of contribution, and to Candis Parker and your example and your leadership of the foundation, your leadership from when you were a student. Wake Tech is a better place thanks to both of you. Thank you for contributing to this community. And to all our listeners, thank you again for joining us on the We Are Wake Tech podcast. Stay tuned next month for the next episode of We Are Wake Tech, which you can find at all the places you find podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Look for the We Are Wake Tech podcast, rate us, and stay tuned next month for the next episode of We Are Wake Tech.
I'm Lori Clowers with some great news about a new opportunity at Wake Tech. It's Free Book Fall. Students enrolled in degree classes this fall won't have to pay for books. The college is picking up the tab as it transitions to a new book bundling program through Barnes & Noble. All fall semester students will have the books they need, including printed and digital textbooks, by the first day of class. Learn more on our website. Better yet, come to our Spring Open House. It's the annual Spring Open House on Saturday, April 1st at the Scott Northern Wake campus and the Perry Health Sciences campus. It's a great chance to learn about Wake Tech degree programs and all the support services the college offers to help you succeed. Again, that's from 9 to noon on April 1st at the Scott Northern Wake campus and the Perry Health Sciences campus. For the second year in a row, Wake Tech has been named to Newsweek's list of America's top online colleges. Wake Tech serves more online students than any community college in North Carolina and offers more than 100 fully online programs. To learn more, visit online.waketech.edu. Wake Tech baking and pastry arts students earned more than 30 medals at the annual American Culinary Federation competition. 14 entries won gold medals, 7 earned silver, and 13 received bronze medals based on artistry, craftsmanship, and presentation. Student Leona Taylor won Best in Show for her cake based on the hit TV show Downton Abbey. More than 750 business and community leaders gathered at the Raleigh Convention Center for the annual event called Wake Tech Ignite. The event showcases students and highlights inspiring stories of perseverance and success. Wake Tech recently celebrated Women in Construction Week. Women make up 1/5 of the college's facilities division and serve in roles from facilities operations and maintenance to design and construction. The application window is open for adults looking to earn a certification or licensure in a high-demand field like healthcare, construction, or IT. Wake Tech is offering more than 50 accelerated training programs free of charge, but the offer won't last long. Visit waketech.edu/free training to learn more. And finally, Wake Tech student athletes are really going places. 3 former Eagles recently represented the Czech Republic in the World Baseball Classic in Tokyo, Japan. Martin Music, Martin Cervinka, and Philip Kapka played for Wake Tech between 2017 and 2019. And that's the latest Wake Tech news.
Hi, I'm Ross. I'm from Wake Tech Financial Aid. I'm here to give you a few tips on financial aid and how to complete your FAFSA. I have top 10 questions that most students have about financial aid and the FAFSA. I'm going to go over some of those and tell you the answers. One of the main questions students have is how to get in touch with us. Well, the easiest way to get in touch with us is to come in to Wake Tech campuses. We have offices on the north, the south, RTP, as well as Health Sciences campus. You can ask us questions in person. You can call us at 866-5410, or you can always email the financial aid department at finaid@waketech.edu. The biggest thing you need to know about financial aid is that you have to complete your FAFSA. That's just an acronym that stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. We're here to help you with it. We have events all the time, all over the different campuses to assist you getting your FAFSA done, but you can do it at home as well. The first thing you need to do is set up your FSA ID. That's your Federal Student Aid ID. That's really just your login information. After you do that, you log in using that information and complete the FAFSA. If you're coming for this upcoming fall semester, that would be the 2023-2024 FAFSA. The most common types of financial aid that students here at Wake Tech get are Pell Grants and direct Stafford loans. There are also state grants available, the North Carolina Community College Grant and Education Lottery Scholarship. The process essentially works like this. You apply for financial aid, it goes to the Federal Department of Education, they process it, and then it comes to us, we process it in our system, and then we award your financial aid. After that, it's just a matter of you going to class, and then your financial aid comes to us, and then we cover your charges with it, and the rest comes to you as a refund. You would just set up your preferred refund account at refundselection.com. Some students have to complete a process called verification. Only 34% of students are selected for this process. However, when you are selected, you need to make sure you get documents that are required to us as soon as possible. You may ask where you know what sort of document you need to turn in. You would check your self-service portal. That's an important website you need to get used to as a financial aid user. What you can find on there is your awards, the amount of your awards, what types of awards, and any other needed information as far as if you have to turn documents in or any actions are needed by you. You can also apply for what's called a federal work-study job. This is a type of job that's on campus usually and helps you cover your charges here at Wake Tech. You can check our Wake Tech Financial Aid website for more details about that. But you'll know when all this is completed, your processing is done, your award is done on your self-service portal, as I mentioned. And you want to keep an eye on that and check it every few days at least while you're a student here or an applicant at Wake Tech. I hope you enjoyed these tips. Remember, if you have any other questions, you can contact us at the Financial Aid Department at finaid@waketech.edu or 866-5410. If you have any questions, let us know. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the We Are Wake Tech podcast. Join us next month for more insightful conversations about the programs and people of Wake Tech and how the college changes lives every day. Be sure to subscribe to your favorite podcast app to have each episode delivered right to your computer or mobile device. For more, find us at podcast.waketech.edu. To learn more about Wake Tech's exceptional educational opportunities, visit waketech.edu.